Hello everyone and welcome back guys to a brand new video today, and today, as some of you might possibly be able to tell by the title, we are here for the first round of the Apex Online Racing League, our Factor 2 Formula 2 League, the first ever time, AOR has really dabbled into our Factor 2, and today we're here for the first round in Bahrain. Now I'm going to take you on board with my fastest qualifying lap in a second, but I'm sort of just going to talk over that lap, sort of talk about this sim and so far my experiences, because as you can probably tell based on watching this quali lap, I am not very good at this, unfortunately, at the moment. I've mainly left this in as, just something I can look back at in a few months' time and think, God, look how bad I was back then. But really did enjoy these first couple of rounds of the season. We are following the standard Formula 2 format. I think, unfortunately, we are making the races ever so slightly shorter, so we've got a 15-minute qualifying session for the first race, and then a 30-minute race. The top 8 are then reversed for race 2, and then we have a 15-minute second sprint race in the evening. The first race as well will also contain a pit stop. But yeah, really looking forward to this season. Unfortunately, I'd only been able to sort of get the game, get the mods, and get the track only a few hours before the before this race, so unfortunately it didn't leave me with too much chance to practice. But luckily for me, Craig, otherwise known as I think C Baxter on Twitter, really helped me out with some wheel settings as well. He's on Thrustmaster I think as well, which is really useful. Completely saved me here because I was really struggling to get the wheel settings tuned down for this. But you can see, coming on this lap, there wasn't any particularly big mistakes. It was sort of just a very cautious run. I did intend to actually go back out later on in the session, but unfortunately there just wasn't enough time to easily, even I personally felt, there was another probably close to a second to find on this lap, so easily, a lot more time to have improved on. As you will probably see in the races, I did get more and more confident overall with this car throughout the evening. But through in towards the final couple of corners, I must say this mod looks absolutely stunning. All the AOR logos around the place are Factor 2 branding as well, so really credit to the guys that made all these mod tracks. They are absolutely fantastic. But breaking down in towards the final into the final corner now. Second gear, short shift number to third, making sure we don't get too much wheel spin. And down towards the line, we're over a second up on my PB so far in this session. It's going to be a 1 minute 49.1 there. Really fun. 148, potentially even a 47 was possible for me. But that left me P14 on the grid, ready for the first race of the night. And already I'd run into a little bit of an issue. I had completely forgot how to put my car back down in neutral for the start of this race. So I was having to leave it in first gear, not building up the revs too much and just holding the brake pedal as well, making sure I didn't jump the start. But waiting now for the start for the lights to go on. Unfortunately, it did take a little bit longer than I was expecting, which really does build up the nerves more and more, ready for the opening round of the season here in Bahrain. But yeah, as I was saying, really looking forward to this race. My main aim was to keep it nice and clean off the start. But here we are then on the grid. It's 2 lights, 4 lights, 6 lights, 8 lights, 10 lights. And it is finally lights out, and away we go there. And straight away, as expected, unfortunately, I completely stalled it there. Just no chance I was going to be able to get the power down. And I can only apologise to M. Sluman behind me there. Unfortunately, he got caught out behind that. But breaking down in towards turn 1 probably actually left me in a bit of a safer position there. Just going to try and get it pinned down to the apex there. Unfortunately, get caught out behind EVR Taz, actually, Justin Parkinson there. A couple of spinners off on the left-hand side there. And somehow, out of all of that, we've only actually found I've lost out 1 position off the start there. So, we're not actually as badly as I expected to go off the start now. Breaking down in towards turn 4 here. Just trying to get it nicely pinned on the apex there. Trying to look down the inside of Taz on the exit there. Get a bit better run on the traction now. We're going to be able to move up into P14 there. So we're back where I started already by the end of Sector 1 here, and now trying to follow on behind my teammate Demon here, as you can see, coming through down in towards the hairpin corner there. Someone actually sends one down my inside there. That was actually Taz that went down my inside, but unfortunately not able to get the traction off the exit of the corner there. Cost us both a little bit of time, but nothing that I was going to worry about in the long run here. But even more contact just in front of me there. Not too sure what 2 cars that were. Unfortunately, Ben and I both have to completely come to a standstill there, and that's going to give, I think that's Rogdanov on my inside there. I'm going to butcher so many names throughout the course of this series there, but he flies straight past me there, able to get a much better run off down the back straight there. And now we find myself up all the way into P13 there, so even with a stall, just goes to show how action-packed these races are. On the first lap of this race, I've already been able to make up the positions there, but he dives it down the inside of my teammate Demon there. Unfortunately for me, he just loses the back end ever so slightly behind them both there. But yeah, we've just about survived the first lap of this race, and that was obviously going to be the most critical part, you know, where the most time and positions can be lost, and we've actually managed to gain somehow out of that. At the final corner though, just fighting the back end ever so slightly, you know, really struggling to get used to the traction. You know, it's a completely different ball game to, you know, the Codemasters Formula 1 games, as you'd rightly expect, you know, obviously with this being a full-fledged simulator versus that being very arcadey. Just makes you, you know, thankful about how easy the Codemasters Formula 1 games are at times as well. But now skipping on to the start of lap 2 of this race, you can see we're now all over the back of Demon once more, but we've got to watch out in my mirrors actually, as we've got SSV or SSY there, I think, having a look, you know, trying to capitalise on any mistakes there. And unfortunately, going through the S section there, I do make a little bit of a mistake. Gonna give him the room on the inside there, you know, no real point trying to defend from that. That's not really what I was trying to do in this first race. You know, the aim of this first evening was just to try and survive on the whole, you know, really. That was all I could ask for here. As you can see, coming through the double of left-hander there, really crucial not to lock up the fronts. But skipping on a couple of laps later, and we were still all over the back of my teammate Demon here. You know, we were very similar in pace in the short amount of practice we've been able to do. I think in one session we were actually only 6,000s apart there. But through in towards the final corner there, it seems that SSV has actually got a little bit of damage now on his car there, where he's just very slow here. We dug back into the slipstream. He pulls to the inside there and just backs out entirely there. So clearly he's got quite a bit of damage on his car. So now back up into P13 we go there. Demon, unfortunately, as well, drops it on the exit of the corner there. So now we move up into P12 of this race here, and we're actually making up good progress in the early stages of this race. Actually, you know, starting to get more and more confident with this car as well as we go along, and now, you know, we're already back down into the 1 minute 50s there. That was a 1 minute 50.6, so clearly, you know, the pace isn't too poor at the moment. You know, a good sort of 4 or 5 seconds off the race leaders though. You can see by actually lap 6 and lap 7 of this race, people have now started making pit stops in this race. Sam Carpenter actually one of the first guys to make his pit stops in this race, and I sort of just wanted to try and go as far as I, you know, sort of realistically could in this first half of the race, if you will. You know, really wanted to try and make sure that, you know, we sort of just kept out the way for people behind me. But now, as you can see, just a couple of laps later here, actually on, you know, completing a lap 10 here, we've actually got a few more drivers in the pit lane here, and that, you know, already up to me all the way up into P6 in this Grand Prix. Probably the highest you're going to see me place at any point throughout this whole entire season there. But out of turn 1 and turn 2, we've actually got Sam Carpenter now all over the back of me here, one of the other rFactor 2 moderators in this series, and I'm, you know, not really going to try and get in the way of him. I pull to the inside. He does actually duck in the slipstream there, but luckily I don't apply the brakes or anything. You know, just let off, let him go around the outside there, and now he moves back up into P6 of the race here. You know, not, you know, really got to try and pick my battles in the early stages of this race, but just going to try and follow him through the next couple of corners there. You can see already he is absolutely flown away from me here. The main thing I really struggle with on this sim so far is just trying to get the traction off the corners, you know, being a bit more early, a bit more confident with the throttle. You know, really that's just going to come with more and more practice, and hopefully by the end of the season, you know, I'd like to be within a couple of seconds of the leaders here. But now on the end of that lap, actually going to dive it into the pit lane here for my one and hopefully only stop of this race, and making sure, you know, we locate my box. Fortunately for me, it is right down at the very end of the pit lane there. Somehow managed to bag, I think, actually the final pit slot on the entire grid there. Maybe just a couple after me, but pitting in, you know, overall got the braking point quite nicely there, and now preparing for an 11-second pit stop here, making sure, you know, that we are nicely on the throttle, ready to pull out there. 11 seconds goes by, and unfortunately we completely bogged down there. Not as bad as we did off the launch there, but now exiting the pit lane, make sure we come off the limiter nice and early, and we're still somehow up in P11 of this race. So even after all the pit stops, we have been able to make a little bit of time, a little bit of an advantage over some of the cars around me there, which was really good to see. But we still had a couple of much quicker cars behind me in this race. We had, I think, CM White and B Bogdanov once again that were, you know, closing in thick and fast on myself there. He actually decides to send one. I thought he'd go down the inside there. We make a little bit of a mistake trying to give him the room there, and he's just an open door for him as he now moves up into P11 of the race once more. And now we've only got CN that's a couple of seconds behind me as well in this race here. You know, end of lap 12 here, and so only a few more laps to go of this race. I think it's only going to be, you know, sort of a 15-16 lap race, I think, overall. Might be a couple more than that here. We can see a couple of laps later, only 5 minutes left in the session, and now seeing is all over the back of me here as we go down this long front straight there. Not really going to do much to try and defend from him. Obviously, with the slipstream as well, he should be able to get a bit of a better run there. Ducks back in, and now he's going to pull out as we move into the braking zone there. Brake a whole lot later than myself that actually get all squirrely down in towards the corner there. We're going to try and give him the room on the exit, though. Not really going to try and go for any sort of switchback move there, but you can just see how powerful the slipstream is on this. You know, I was much later on the traction, but still able to close up there. Having a little bit of a dummy there, but not really going to go for any moves. You know, he's quite late on the brakes there, and I was going to hopefully, you know, let him try and pull away a bit, follow his lines right through to the end of the race. We got a 22-second gap to actually the car behind me there, so really, you know, as long as we don't make any mistakes, P13 was mine for the taking here. But moving on to the final lap of this Grand Prix here, as you can see, actually a lot of the drivers already made it to the finish, and Cian and Bogdanov, I think they're all fighting with each other there, and unfortunately for him, he's completely dropped it on the exit of the corner there, and that's going to be one free position for me, back up into P12 on the final lap of this race there. I'm really, you know, obviously quite lucky for me to obviously make back up at that position there, but finish him as we come through the final couple of corners of this race. We were able to hold on to P12 there, as unfortunately he just opts to, you know, retire from the Grand Prix, if you will, holds on to that P13, so there was no point in him really taking that wounded car back to the pit lane. But out of the final corner we go there, and we're going to come through to finish P12 in the first round of the evening. Way more than I was going to ask for in that race. Out of 20 drivers, really happy with that result overall. So happy, confidence, you know, was high going into the second race of the season. Even after we stalled, we were still able to come through and actually make up positions in that race. But race 2, obviously being that much shorter, it's going to probably be a whole lot more hectic. But here we are then on the grid once more. As I said, starting from P12 with the results from the first race of the evening. But here we are then, it's 4 lights, 6 lights, 8 lights, 10 lights once more for round 2 of the night, and it's lights out and away we go. And actually off to, but this time to a standard start there, without actually remembering how to put the car in neutral and down in towards turn 1 though. Going to try and think about going for a move. No, we don't. Brake nice and early in towards T1 there, trying to get it nicely pinned on the apex there. Hope that, you know, the carnage does happen outside of me there. Give someone a little bit of room on the exit over the corner there, and unfortunately going to cost my run there. Trying to make sure we do give people the space on the exit of the corner there. And now I think that's S. Davidson's going to fly back past me, break it down in towards turn 4 there, and just make sure, you know, that we don't try and go for anything ridiculous in the early stages of this race there. Bogdanov actually makes a little bit more contact with me here at the start of race 2 there, so we're just going to move and, you know, allow him at that position there, because he was still a whole lot quicker than me in the early stages of this race here. But now breaking down in towards the head, you can see the whole field so tightly bunched at this moment in time, you know, making sure that we don't drop it by myself in the early stages. This is where places can really be made there. See a few drivers go for a few different overtaking maneuvers there. A little bit of contact nearly between, I think that's Lambrex and Bogdanov on the exit of the corner onto the long back straight here, and we're just holding on behind, you know, waiting. If, you know, opportunities do arise, we will try to pounce on them. But you can see we're still holding on to P12 though, so we haven't actually lost any places off that start there, which is really, you know, more than I could ask for. Once more, they're a bit more of a better start than round 1, as I possibly said, of the season. But breaking down in towards the final couple of corners there, and there's even more contact between Bogdanov and I think that's Cian there, so clearly he's not happy after the race 1 contact between the pair from there. But that leaves, you know, all these guys very feisty. Just ahead of me there, Lambrex thinks about going for a move down the inside in towards the final corner. There's a spinner actually on the inside there, but unfortunately for me, you know, able to get the car facing the right direction and getting on the power once again before I'm able to get to the scene there. You can see they're both pushing each other right towards the inside here. We're going to try and duck into the slipstream for that little bit of extra boost down in towards turn 1 here. Fortunately for me, no cars really too close behind me to be able to make any sort of lunges there, but unfortunately there's going to be a spinner on the inside of T1 there, and unfortunately just trying to avoid him there, I unfortunately dropped the car on the acceleration. Not really what I needed there. That's going to send me right back to the bottom of the field there. P18, unfortunately, after that little moment there. And that was really gutting for myself. You know, really knocked back my confidence in this second race there. You know, not really too much we could have done that. You know, much prefer, you know, that we span it and avoided contact there and crashed into another car there. So really, you know, just trying to keep my head down, get focused on the rest of this race. And actually, once again, they were behind my teammate Demon here as we come through the first few turns here of that lap 2. He thinks about someone down the inside there. We lock up trying to avoid Demon there, and we do just about hold on for P17 at the moment, making sure, you know, we're nice and early on the throttle, trying to avoid the wheel spin though as much as possible. Now, Demon thinks about having a look down the inside there. We're just going to park it right behind him. They're getting out, don't they? Really, we could have got much closer to him right then. They're trying to get nice and early on the throttle down this back straight, but unfortunately losing the back end ever so slightly. Demon now going to have a look down the inside of, I think that's Kokan, just ahead of him there, breaking down in towards the final few corners, into the final sector of this lap. And Demon is on an absolutely mad one here. He's now all over the back of Slav, I think that is. Just ahead of him, they're going to make 2 positions up in the space of 3 corners there. And now coming out of the corner, unfortunately, well, it was, you know, all too much for Demon there. That's going to give me 1 free position here, and potentially a second, as we've got a bit of a better run over Kokan down in towards the final couple of corners. He completely breaks way earlier than I was expecting there. Not really too sure if he expected me to try and keep it down the inside there, but I think overall from that we did come out just about unscathed there. Maybe a tiny bit of aero damage there, but I think, yeah, that was just a little bit of a miscommunication between the pair of us. But I'm going to dive it back down into the slipstream there, down in towards T1. There was side by side. I'm going to brake much later than him, down in towards the corner now, up into P15 of this race once more there, and I think that's Skov still just ahead of me here, and hopefully we can try and capitalise on him, you know, in these next couple of laps of this race as well. Here we can see now on the end of lap 3 here, and we're all over the back of Skov here. You're actually getting a very good run out of the second to last corner here. We're going to try and look down the inside in towards the final corner there, but once again we get to back out just that little bit earlier there. Fortunately for me, not able to pin it on the apex there. We just try and get on the power that ever so slightly too early there, but we do hold on at this moment in time now with the slipstream once more here, down in towards T1 there. The slipstream just so powerful here. I'm going to pull it to his inside there, but also we've got Iron Man. Actually, I'm going to look down my inside, 3 wide, down in towards turn 1. I'm the earliest of the breakers there. Try and get it pinned down on the apex there. And now on the exit of the corner, we're going to try and squeeze Skov ever so slightly, bit of contact there. Unfortunately, I think that did cost him a little bit more time, so I can only apologise for that. But we do hold on to P15 for now in this race, and that was, you know, quite interesting. You know, certainly not exactly the position I wanted to be in there, but Lambrecht's actually just ahead of me there, making a little bit of a mistake through the first sector here, down in towards this S section here, and we thought potentially, you know, he could have quite a bit of dirt on his tyres there, but not really going to cost him it too much as he goes all over the curbs there, breaking down in towards the next corner here, really trying to capitalise on the position there, but unfortunately, once again, the back end just breaking away there, but really good to see on the other hand, you know, that we can try and fight with this kart that little bit more now, getting really close to him through the hairpin there, the double left-hander there, and now skipping on a couple of laps later towards the end of lap 6 here. See, actually losing a couple of seconds to Lambrecht's there, but he completely drops it over the curb there. That's now going to move me up into P13 of this race here, and that's really ideal for me. Only a couple of laps to go actually of this race. I think, you know, only sort of realistically potentially 2, potentially 3 more laps in this race here. But now, as you can see, coming towards the end of the lap, they're still fighting the back end as much as possible here, just trying to really sort of push the car a little bit more. Quick but careful, I think, is the right way to describe it. But now skipping on in towards the final lap of the Grand Prix here to see Cian and Obianin. I think, once again, I'm so sorry for how many names I am butchering over the course of this evening. They are locked into battle just ahead of me here, so potentially, like we saw in race 1 though, the time is now up, so this is the final lap of this race. Potentially, you know, we could capitalise once more in this race. You can see, carrying on through this final lap of the Grand Prix. There's a bit of smoke just up in front of me there, and I think they've both actually spanned there. Yes, they have. Unfortunately for Albinion, he's unfortunately completely dropped in there. Now going to get back into the race there. Cian as well, actually, I think made a tiny bit of contact with the wall there, so we now move back up into P12 of this race here, and now we're going to stay on board for the rest of this final lap here, hoping, you know, potentially if Cian's got a bit of damage, we could potentially capitalise on this position, maybe even get myself up into P11 of this race here. But now coming through in towards the next couple of corners as well, we've got to watch. The fuel is now very low there. In the first race, unfortunately, we ran probably a bit too much fuel in that race, so good to see in the second race overall we were actually running a bit closer to the realistic amount of fuel needed. But breaking down in towards this final sector of the lap, unfortunately it seems that Cian is not going to have enough damage that I'm going to be able to capitalise on there, actually pulling away from it. We want some more, making sure we don't make any mistakes so that Albinion can, you know, get an advantage from that as well. But Cian actually runs massively wide there, out of the second to last corner there. I was really hoping potentially into the final corner he could make a lockup, you know, pinch a brake, pinch a tyre there, and we could capitalise on the position. But unfortunately, it was not meant to be there. Through the final corner we go, though. Fortunately for me, then losing the back end ever so slightly, but able to hold it, facing the right direction there. And it's going to be P12 once again there in that Grand Prix. Two very, very action-packed races overall, and I was really, really happy with how those two races went on the whole. Really, really excited now for the second round of the season at Catalonia here, but doing a little bit of donuts to finish off the evening there. But really, as I said, so much fun, you know, so different to anything I've ever done before. Probably the closest sim I've ever done to this before was Project Cars. You know, these two are two completely different ball games there. But overall, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this race. Certainly, I think, you know, a top 10s can be on the cards throughout the rest of the season. But hopefully, if you've enjoyed, do not forget to like, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time for round 2 of the season.